Just waiting for the recording to get started. It's not for the suspense of it. Okay, right. All right. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have a roll call
Josh,
here.
Nathan,
Here.
but it's not here yet. Okay. Mindy, here, and Andrew.
Here. All right, we have an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Agenda passes. For public forum, we do have two that we know of for sure. The first ones, we'll go ahead and I think we have our middle school council, student council here.
Yeah, Christy Danielson and oh, my still up. Oh.
Come on up.
Oh,
Yeah.
hello. I'm Christy Danielson. I'm teach sixth grade social studies. I'm Hannah Gorman. I'm one of the school counselors over at the middle school. And Abby Anderson is also one of the student council advisors. And this year, we have a great group, and we are going to be working on parliamentary procedure. And so we thought we would come see what board meeting sounds like, it looks like, but then the FFA will be coming over to the middle school and will be teaching us about parliamentary procedure. So I'll let you introduce yourselves and your grade.
I am Autumn McKilligan and I'm a student council member in 8th grade.
I'm Alex Clapron. I'm in 8th grade and I'm the president.
I'm Karen Ryan. I'm the vice president and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Myla Anderson, I'm in 6th grade. I'm Jude Hazard, and I'm also in 6th grade.
I'm Jackson Patton and I'm in 6th grade.
I'm Jada Everett, and I'm in 8th grade. I'm Gracia Fishida, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Lila Cruz and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Brooklyn Days, and I'm in 7th grade. I'm Grace Rolston, and I'm in 7th grade.
Thank you so much for letting us come and observe and learn from you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out. Enjoy. Next, on the list for public forum, we have Doug Beard. You wanna go ahead and step up? There's a mic up there and just.
Where you want me to go?
Up here too.
Oh, this table right here, it says public forum on our side.
Yeah, no, it does on ours too.
Oh, okay. And just to remind you of the awkwardness of public forum, we can't take action on anything that you're saying or discuss, but again, as I always say, we don't get enough public forum, so I thank you for doing this. Anytime we get people more involved, we really appreciate it.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm still gonna ask you to do something, even though I know that's the case, so. But as you said, my name is Doug Beard, I'm a Gilbert resident, a very proud parent of a freshman at the high school. I want to share some thoughts that I have, and then also make a request of you regarding the proposed cell phone ban. I want to thank you, first of all, for your openness in the discussion that you had 2 months ago, and also for the one 2 weeks ago. I was grateful to be able to attend one of them and watch the other one online. I want to say first that I know how much everyone cares about these students, including the 5 of you and 6 of you, Dr. T. I know this because I see how much work is put in. I've gotten emails late at night. I see what the teachers do, and I don't doubt any of that. And so because I see that, I choose to believe that everybody came to those meetings from an honest place with an honest discussion in mind and shared their true feelings on the issue. Based on the meeting 2 weeks ago, however, there are 2 things that seem pretty clear to me. One, we all seem to agree that cell phones and social media are terrible, mind-altering devices. And we all seem to agree that they have a negative impact on our children and on their mental health. 2, by and large, the attendees of the meeting 2 weeks ago seem to accept the premise that somehow Gilbert schools are different and that we don't suffer from the same cell phone problems that other schools do. Therefore, we don't need a district-wide policy, and we should rely on the experts, as listed there, the teachers, to manage their classrooms in their way. Well, I cannot tell you how happy I was to hear the first statement made multiple times in that meeting, including by people on the board, I also cannot express to you how much it perplexes me as a parent as to why we seem to so badly want to keep cell phones in the hands of our children during the school day. But I tried to listen to the viewpoint. I tried to understand what was going on. I listened to the teachers and unfortunately, I didn't hear a lot of anything other than opinion. I wondered, where were the experts? Even if we couldn't get a local psychiatrist or psychologist to come in and talk about this, surely the counselors in the school could have offered their opinion if asked. I wondered where the evidence has been. I know that it's been delivered to this board, to the administrators, and to the principals, and I didn't hear any of it. I fully acknowledge that Gilbert is a great school district. It includes some truly remarkable educators. After all, my wife and I moved here 5 years ago for that reason exactly. But we do not have to look very deep in our history to see security and mental health concerns on our campus and in our student body. The assertion that we are somehow immune to this is as dangerous as it is irresponsible. Whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, our students, like others, lie, cheat, and bully. They do it during and outside of school. They do it online. They do it on their phone, and they do it in person. As a result, we all know students who are suffering from depression and other mental health issues. They are in pain. They cry. They hurt. They even question their own self-worth to the point of contemplating harming themselves or even suicide. Just like the teenage versions of us, our students feel left out, unwanted, and ashamed at times. The difference being that we allow and even encourage this generation to carry around a device with its applications everywhere that provides them with a steady stream of the endless reminders of the most damning things about their life. Things like the lack of likes on their latest Instagram post, not getting a text when they think they should have for a celebration, or even that picture that someone else took that they don't like, that they can't get off social media. Our kids are already thinking, worrying, and obsessing way too much about everything as teenagers, and now we've added something to their pocket or even their wrist so that they can't escape all of this also. It is easy to say that parents should step in, but even if I take my kid's cell phone away, they have friends who are all too happy to share whatever's online as soon as they get to school. And even if they know the danger and are taught it, they are almost helpless against social media companies that have designed their apps to be as addictive as heroin by making sure that every interaction engages our brains and supplies dopamine at a more effective level than a hypodermic needle, according to Dr. Anna Lemke, who's a professor of psychiatry at Stanford Medical School. Knowing all of this, I struggle to understand how we have not taken any action at this time. Sometimes as parents and as a school board, we have to give people something they don't want because they don't know and it's what they need. Mr. Bennett, you asked during the meeting 2 weeks ago what your role as a school board is in this matter, and I would like to give you an answer. According to Policy 101, this board is dedicated to providing an opportunity to develop healthy social, intellectual, emotional, and physical concept in a learning environment that provides guidance to and encourages critical thinking in the students for a lifetime. So I will ask all 5 or 4 of you that are here to reject the handbook policy that's going to be proposed, or at least may be proposed later today, and instead take steps to create a zero tolerance policy banning cell phones from the first bell to the last bell in all 4 of our schools for the good of our students. Should you decide to do so, you will be giving each of our students the opportunity outlined in Policy 101, which you all agreed to dedicate yourselves to when you reviewed and affirmed that policy less than 1 month ago. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Again, we're not able to respond to that, but there is a point in the meeting under new business where we will be discussing, so. Not to give you a cliffhanger, but if there's anyone else with public forum, please step up, otherwise we will continue with the meeting. It's not that scary, right? It's okay. Okay, yeah, good. Thank you, please.
I'm Austin Lepper, have 4 daughters in Gilbert schools and graduated here myself. I'm not gonna make this long, just briefly say that I also was at the last meeting and was also I guess surprised to hear that there wasn't a lot of conversation about mental health related to cell phone use amongst our students, which my understanding from the petition that was signed and everything that's gone on to date, that is the point of the cell phone conversation. It's not academic performance, it's not teachers being frustrated. With discipline issues or that sort of thing, if those were the issues, I'm sure we wouldn't need parent involvement or a public forum because it would have already been addressed, right? Those obviously would be things that need to be taken care of immediately. But mental health is obviously a much more nuanced area and you know, there's no one-to-one answer here. But I think the evidence is starting to show that, you know, cell phones in schools are or reducing the amount of time available to use cell phones in schools can have a positive impact on mental health and community building amongst the students. And community building and having everyone feel a sense that they belong and have a network of peers around them is the key to preventing some of the serious problems that occur. You know, in terms of suicides and mass shootings. So that's all I'd say. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else for public forum? All right, moving on to oral reports, announcements, celebrations.
Okay. Just to start off, I just wanted to thank everyone, our teachers, our staff, bus drivers, nutrition, maintenance, grounds, everyone for a great start of the school year. I'm really grateful to everyone and thankful for just a really positive start to the school year. And it's great to have the kids back and we're excited about that. Also, just to kick off everything that we do, it involves a lot of people. So I wanted to give a specific shout out to a few business partners that we had that helped us in our kickoff and our start. Clark Builders was a wonderful partner in providing the t-shirts on inspiring greatness for us. So we're very grateful. Terry Clark is here. So we want to say thank you to she and her family, and they presented a check with close to $2,000 for that. So we're very grateful. Also want to thank Nap Tedesco for providing the staff breakfast, which is also a big hit, and their staff coming out and welcoming everyone, along with Great Harvest Bakery. If you're familiar with them, they were a big part of that and really helped as well. We had Gail Galing and the Galing Realty Group provided a gift bag along with the Gilbert PTO that we gave out to staff at our kickoff. So we're thankful and grateful to them. And so it was just the beginning. Those are just a few. There's a lot more, but those were just makes the celebration even more exciting. Also a big thank you to, we had a staff band / skit that performed for us, which was incredible. So we're very grateful to that team for putting that together to have a wonderful kickoff, and thank you to Josh that spoke to our staff as well. So just want to thank everyone for that. Also, just a couple of other announcements, and then I have a video I want to share, but we have our first home football game this week, so hope everyone will come out. There's a lot going on besides football. We have mental health night, we have cheer clinic, we also have a fundraiser. We have a staff member, Jordan Sitzma, along with her husband, who is a coach with the football team, and they have a young one that is suffering a medical concern, and so we'll be fundraising for them at that night as well. So a lot going on. It'll be a wonderful night for the community. I hope everyone will come out and cheer on our Tigers as they have done great things the last two. We won the last two, so we're super excited about that. So we also want to celebrate the groundbreaking celebration that we had. Do we have a couple photos of that, Jason, queued up just to take a look at those? We had our groundbreaking last Friday for the elementary. And it was so cool because we had longtime community member Gene Upstill joined us. We also had Donna Holton, who was a teacher in the building from the very beginning, there to join us. And then the students that you see are kindergartners that Principal Stacy Edwards worked with her team on, that were either second, third, or fourth generation Gilbert kids. And they'll be in the new building. So they were out there and it was really fun. They were commenting about, are we really building the new school right now? And I'm like, yes, you are, and their little shovels and their hard hats, so it was wonderful, and thank you to all of you for being there, so those pictures are all online, but you get a little sense of it there, so. Thank you to everyone for that, and then at the end of the, celebration, our back to school celebration, we shared a video with staff, and I'd like to take a few minutes and share that with you tonight. This video is a collaboration with myself and our team to put together our message for this year, and then working with Troy Banning, puts all our words to come alive in this video. So I'll take a few minutes and share this important video that we shared with all staff, Inspiring Greatness.
As the great Maya Angelou once said, you can't really know where you are going until you know where you have been. And as we move forward as a school district into a new year, we all need to take a moment to reflect on the many past achievements that have set the stage for our future successes. Each school year, our collective efforts build a proud legacy of the Gilbert Community School District, and the 24-25 school year will be no different. It's a year full of promise and potential, where we all continue to shine a light on the power of we while we inspire greatness for our students. Our mission is and will continue to be every student, every day. That's not changing. Together, we will continue to show that in actions on a daily basis. Gilbert CSD has so much to celebrate when it comes to big successes. Our district has been recognized with numerous awards, locally, at the statewide level, and even on the national level. Gilbert CSD is routinely one of the highest achieving districts academically, and it's because of the work our students and staff do together. But we'll always strive for better. We'll always yearn for more, because that's who we are. And it's not just our district that is being recognized for its achievements. We have teachers that have received prestigious awards, and these individual honors are a reflection of the collaborative work we do together. Less than 1 year ago, we passed the largest bond in Gilbert history with overwhelming support to ensure that our district will continue to thrive as enrollment grows. In our classrooms, we witnessed countless moments of personal growth. Students emerging as leaders, showing kindness and empathy, and helping others without being asked. We see moments of laughter, high-level questioning, and a belief that each student can shine in his or her own unique way. This is the Gilbert Community School District. We know our mission. We believe in our mission. Together, we harness the power of we, and now we strive to take it to a place where we inspire greatness within ourselves, our colleagues, and our students. Challenge yourself, challenge each other, and challenge our students to reach even greater heights. Inspiring greatness is not comparing ourselves or our achievements against others. Rather, it's a chance for each of us to sprinkle water on those seeds already planted to help us be our best individually, as well as for our coworkers, family, friends, and our students. Each of us has a story to tell, personal and unique. Our students do too. So how do we release the greatness in those around us? It starts with the questions we ask, the way we listen to the answers, and the relationships we build. Through these connections and through truly listening to what each other has to say, we can inspire greatness in others.
That concludes my remarks for celebration.
Next would be administrative reports, department updates.
Sure, just hopefully you'll take a look at the department updates. As you can see, everybody's been really busy. A couple of highlights there that I wanted to mention is that I do not know all the technology, but I know in the grounds department, we have a new robotic painting machine that paints things on the field and does it really, really well and saves a lot of time and everybody's really excited about it. So we have to ask Brent, if you see Brent, ask him because he has enjoyed getting to use that. And that is also a collaboration that we have worked with youth sports to make sure we're helping their fields as well. So it's a neat way to share the cost. And so we're excited about that. Also wanted to mention that in the nutrition department, we have hired Taste and her group have hired a baker. And so we had our first fresh baked bread with one of our meals last week and went over very, very well. So we're super excited to see where that's going. And so there's lots of good things happening there. If you take a look at the report. So
Mental wellness report.
okay, the next thing with mental wellness report, what I want to mention, hopefully everyone is aware, but I just want to keep putting it in the forefront. Our Gilbert Collective group is meeting September 24th at Iowa State Alumni Group, and this is our legislative session. We have invited legislators, including the governor's office, to join us. We've had not the greatest response from our legislators, so we're hoping we get more that come. So if anyone has connections, that would be great. We have reached out, we've sent invites, we've also made personal phone calls. And so also wanted to mention to all of our families that if you're not on the Gilbert Collective group, you are welcome to join. And that will be, it's sort of our transition meeting where we're coming together to talk about the work we did last year. But there are some people that may want to transition off the group, and then there might be new people coming on as we look at what else can we do as a community for mental health. And so we're working with Dr. Jennifer Yulee. We'll continue our work with her. But if you're interested in being on that committee and you have not heard about it, or you have heard about it, you'd like to join, we're happy to have parents and families join us. You can email me or Lindsay Good, who is leading up that, or Ashley Smith. And we look forward to that first group. There's subcommittees within that. We'll be regrouping, talking about what that looks like. And Lindsay and Ashley met with our team leads last week to get everybody prepared for that meeting coming up. And so we're excited because we have so many people. That's why we're meeting with the Iowa State Alumni building, so that we can have lots of space and have lots of people. So we look forward to that. And
I had a question, not Christie.
sure,
And I know I missed stuff,
that's okay.
but our cell phone, is that part of Jennifer Yulee's discussion at all? Is that on her agenda for this issues?
So it's not as far as on her agenda, but I do know we have a subcommittee that is talking about the cell phone piece and what that would look like. And so I don't know that group has come to, and that's one of the things we're talking about at the meeting is there's lots of different subgroups of what does it look like, and then what are the outcomes. I believe at our meeting coming up, we're going to talk about kind of where have we been, what have we been doing, and then where are we headed. And I know we have one committee that's very interested and motivated about having additional conversation around that cell phone piece. So, and that is something that I think is a great way to continue the work as we move forward through tonight. It's really to continue the conversation, just like we are with every subcommittee, is what can we do as a community around mental wellness. And so how do we help our own mental wellness? How do we help the mental wellness of our kids and our students in all the places our kids go, not just at school, but also what does that look like for us in sports? What does that look like for us in maybe religious, whether it's at church or wherever, whatever that looks like. So that's one of the powers to me of the Gilbert Collective, is to be able to come together, have those deep, meaningful conversations. And then one of the things that I've worked with Dr. Yulee with over the summer is then what are our outcomes? What are our takeaways? What are our things that we can do, action we can take as it relates to not just cell phones, but all the different components. So hopefully that answers that. Good question. And then the only other thing I forgot to mention in celebrations is hopefully everyone's tuning in to Gilbert News in 90, because that's coming out every week and it's just a fun way to get the news. It's in lieu of, sometimes people have done newsletters, and so instead of the newsletter, we feel like that 90-second video is a much quicker, more often information for everybody. So news in 90. And that's all I have.
All right. Moving on to board reports and the policy committee update.
Yeah, policy committee, we met last Friday. We reviewed several policies in the 200 series, which is all about the board of directors and responsibilities and the way we function around that. Just a few minor revisions to those. So they'll come for first reading tonight. We also talked about the updated chronic absenteeism policy. There was new laws passed in the spring by the governor about chronic absenteeism and how that has to be addressed by schools, and so we'll have first reading on that tonight. And then we also reviewed the proposed handbook updates to cell phone usage, and we'll review that later tonight.
Board training with IASB, Monday, October 28th at 5:30. I think that's a little work session that we have.
Yes, so we're excited. That'll be a retreat and that will be, we're very excited. We have a date. And so we have a facilitator from IASB that will come and work with us as a board. And in my role as superintendent and your role as board members, and what does that look like? And how can we work together to continue to do the great work we're doing? Andrew and I met with the facilitator and gave her some ideas of things, and then she also had some suggestions, so we look forward to working with her.
At the ISB 79th annual convention, November 20, 21, and 22. So I think a few people maybe signed up. There's any, who else going? Yeah, Nathan, I'm going.
I'm going.
I'm going.
I'm still on.
Okay. Yep. Schedules are always tough, but it's really good training, so. Try to get anybody that wants to go.
Just let me know when I can sign you up.
Is there a deadline?
Yeah, it's usually like the first week in November. or second week in November.
I would probably wait until closer to.
Okay, we'll bring it up at the end of the month.
All right, next we have facilities master planning update.
Yes, Joe is here from CMBA
Good evening.
and he has some exciting updates for us. So welcome, Joe.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good to see everybody. Guess we saw you on Friday at the groundbreaking. So I think we know where we're at with the PK2s tonight. I want to talk about the high school and the district office mainly. Gail, are you running this? You go to the next slide, please. So the high school, this is just a simple floor plan of the high school, and in red, you can see where we're planning additions to the building. So the northwest corner, there's a classroom addition coming in. And then on the east end, we're looking at the gymnasium, locker room, training room addition. And then in yellow, that's the existing science rooms. Those are slated for renovation. So we've been working with Cindy, I see Cindy's here, and her staff for the past few months, as well as leadership, facility committee with Nathan and Josh and Dr. T and Vic. And we've honed in on what the design goals of the project are, what the scope is, and then how each space is supposed to function. And then we got a budget for it and all fits in, so things are right on track. So now we've just moved into construction documents, which means we're turning all the designs into blueprints that can be bid out and then constructed. So the plan for us is to deliver those documents at the 1st of November to get out to bid, to then be awarded before the holidays, and then have a spring construction start. And that construction window would go through the summer of 2026. Gail, if you want to go to the next slide. These are some zoom ins of what those general classrooms are on the northwest end. So second floor, this would be right across from, I believe it's Spanish classrooms, first floor right across from art classroom. And what we're able to get here is 5 new general purpose classrooms that Cindy can help her staff schedule around. One specific for business use, and then 4 others that just basically give you room for growth, because I think we all know the projections are that there's more students coming. Another thing we noticed here is there's not a whole lot of bathrooms in this area of the school, so we added 2 shared bathrooms up here, and then several breakout spaces for a variety of different learning types. Next slide, Gail. This is just a standard science lab. When we were doing master planning, one of the biggest things that we realized with science rooms is they're really not set up for how the teachers and students need them to be. And there's a room specifically in the first floor that sits idle for a lot of the week. So we're looking to renovate those rooms. If you want to go to the next slide, Gail. This is a first floor classroom. So we've pushed our physics and physical science onto the first floor with a lot of flexible furniture and some casework rearrangements. We've redone where the teaching wall is after a lot of meetings with Ashley and Everett, the teachers down there. and helping to understand how they want to use the space. And really the goal is to make these flex use spaces. For level two is different because that's for biology and chemistry. So Kara and Lisa are going to share those 2 rooms, and these have to be hard piped with gas and plumbing. So these are a little bit less flexible, but the way that we're redesigning the spaces is that they'll function much better for a front of house lecture area and a back of house lab area. And the goal here is that these are all for 24 students, but with growing numbers, they'll fit up to 30 per classroom for the years where they really start to bump up. For the gymnasium, I mentioned it earlier, we have an 84-foot basketball court with 2 cross courts, bleachers for about 200 people, 2 large locker rooms with direct exterior access. Those are going to be flex use. So in football season, they can use for football. In the winter months, they can be used for basketball, wrestling, however the school sees fit. And then a much larger training room. We noticed that was one of the issues with the existing school, is that there's just not enough taping tables. So new training room in that lower right corner, and then a dedicated office space as well, because there's multiple people working in there.
And just as a reminder, that's a practice gym.
Right.
It has room for, 200 people, but the idea is that it's a practice gym.
Right.
That would be available.
Next slide, Gail. I'll be really quick about this, but as we're talking about design, the existing building, we looked at the existing material palette. We want to make sure that this new addition complements it. The building is about 12 years old, so some of this we can get the matching material, some of it we have to think a little bit differently. So if you want to go to the next slide, Gail. This is where that addition is. So you probably know exactly where your building is currently, but the red brick and then the silver is a metal panel. That's that addition we were talking about for the 5 classrooms. And so that's material that's already on the building elsewhere, but we're not going to try to match the tan brick, because after 12 years, it just starts to naturally change. So we're going to try to complement it with what's already on the school. And then this is another good opportunity. So this area, the original architect designed this to be able to grow in this direction. So that means that there's no major utilities out here. So in the future, when the school grows again and we have to do another addition, this is all planned to set up so that addition will continue on the corridor, will just continue right through. You can add classrooms, it could become the courtyard like it was originally designed, or it could, branch off and tee off in a different direction. So we're trying to think ahead like that.
But again, remind me, courtyards are bad.
I think courtyards are bad. I think Brent Randolph will tell you courtyards are bad.
Yeah.
It's a maintenance issue.
Yeah, how to get the lawnmower inside the courtyard.
Right. So this is over on the east end of the building. This is the proposed gymnasium. So we're trying to not make this a back of house space. It's going to have a lot of visibility from the football stadium also coming into town from the east. And so we're trying to use, because it's going to be a gym, it's going to be a much taller structure. We're using that as some type of signage opportunity. So we're working with Dr. T on what exactly that's going to look like. But we don't want it to look like a back of house warehouse. We want it to be something that's nice to look at from everywhere it can be seen. Inside the space, we talked a lot with Ian about how he wants this to function. We know his preferences for the volleyball nets, the basketball hoops, they're all going to be operated electronically, and it gives a lot of flexibility for the space. We want to put some windows in here. Those are north facing windows, so the times where sun will come through there is very rare. It's in the summertime, and it shouldn't have any glare issues with playing basketball, but it brings a nice ambiance into the space.
Joe, can you talk just a minute about one direction it's full size, the other direction it's for?
Yes.
And then talk about the volleyball court.
You bet. So you can see it here, the black lines, that's an 84-foot court. So most schools in Iowa are either 84 or 94-foot court. Your existing is 94. So in that direction, you could play competition games. There's a little bit of bleachers on the left for 200 people, but there's also 2 additional cross courts. Those are much shorter courts, but it gives you more hoops, and that's for practice, gym class, that accessory type use. And then the volleyball nets, same story. We've got a full-size volleyball court that runs north-south, and then 2 that run east-west. And those are currently designed to be ceiling suspended, so you're not bringing out the poles and putting them in the ground and having sleeves. And right now, that's in the budget, so we're happy about that. That was a huge request from Ian. I think it functions a lot better for how they can switch in and out very quickly and easily. So this is just a look at the training room, and Ian tells me that's exactly how it'll be used. People will be in there just on their phones. But this gives you 3 training tables, additional casework and storage. If you go to the next one, Dale. Some exterior windows. It sounds like the staff would really like to have that. We're gonna have some privacy film on there, so you can't see into the space, but you can see out. And then that red room right there, that's your office for 2. And that could double as potentially a ref space we've talked about for football games. It's really gonna be kind of a flex use. Any questions on high school or comments before we move on? Okay, so we've also been working on designs for the district office, and it's a similar timeline to the high school, probably a little bit behind. What we have right up here is the site plan. You probably all remember when we requested to do the survey for the site to see what infrastructure was there. Found out that there was some minor stuff that we could work around, and then we did geo borings to make sure the soil conditions were appropriate. That came back with what the structural engineer had anticipated, so that was good. And so this is just a loose layout of how we would propose setting that up with new parking and where the building would sit. And what I like about this graphic is it shows the dark green, that's currently where you have the taller fescue grass. And so for football games, when you have overflow parking coming over here, I wanted to show that we're really not trying to steal that space, because we can push the building back far enough that you can maintain a lot of that, plus have additional parking. So as far as a layout, the program of this building, we're designing it for growth, which is just like all the projects on in campus. This has 12 proposed offices. Currently, there's 9, so that gives you 3 for growth. You have a dedicated boardroom space, which is where this group would be meeting for these meetings. But it's also up front, so it could be a flex use space for the community. People can come in, and it doesn't have to sit idle all the time, right? It can have it can be a teacher resource or any type of internal meeting, but also a community meeting. There's 2 different conference rooms, one small and one large. One of the big goals for this is that we know that the district office has lunch together every day. And so we're trying to find these spaces where everybody can meet together and kind of have these breakout conversations. And then there's a large area outside of the boardroom where the reception is, and that's just kind of another gathering flexible space where people can enter to. I mentioned the schedule, it is up there. We're still targeting completing design at the end of the year. This could be bid out at the same time as the high school, and construction would be similar, a little bit of a quicker project because it's a smaller scale. But the target right now is completion for the winter of 25-26. This is an axonometric of the floor plan, because we know everybody doesn't like 2D floor plans. So you can see we're looking at the northwest corner. So that's the entry at the very lowest part of this image. And then as you look up, that's the boardroom, the lobby adjacent, and that's kind of the public space separated from the back of house, all the offices, some of the shared spaces, one conference room, break room, et cetera. And that way it kind of creates a nice front of house, back of house for public use and then private use. Getting to the outside of the building, we've been through several iterations on this, and I think we feel pretty good about where we're at here. We're trying to play off of some of the materials on campus, but it's a different type of building. It's not a school, so it can be a little bit different. But what we do know is if it goes in the location that we're proposing, it is kind of a gateway into the community, and it can be seen from all 4 angles, right? North from the high school, south as you come into the town, as well as the west, and then east from your athletic complex. So we have to make it look good from every angle. So that's been the challenge for us, but it's been a fun challenge because I like where we're at. So this is the north facade. And one thing that we've talked a lot with Dr. T about was the area south of this location, that's all wetland area that'll never be developed, right? Because it's for overflow storm sewer. But it would be really cool to have a view out to it because you know it'll always be green space. And so that big glass area up front, that goes through to the boardroom, which has a lot of glass and visibility, and then windows out to that south as well. So as we work around this scale, this is the northwest side. So this little bump out, we talked about using wood in areas that make sense. So this is the entrance into that building and kind of brings you into that public space. And then this is the south. So as you're coming into town from the Ames area, this is what you would see. We're trying to create some elements where there's outdoor spaces that either the community can use or the admin staff. So you can see that over on the right, kind of a little breakout area. And then this would be the angle from over by the football field. So separate entrance, that can be a private entrance for people that are going to their office space. And then you can see like a little patio area there. And that's everything for that project.
Again, timeline, you said this could go to bid.
What we're thinking is if we move into design development and then into the construction documents, we can complete design by the end of the year.
Here.
Bid it first of the year, award it, and then go to spring construction.
Got it, okay.
The completion through to potentially 2026.
Yeah, the goal will be to complete it by the end of next year.
And that's both the high school project and this would be similar timeframes.
High school would be a little bit longer. That would be the start of the 2026 school year. It's just a bigger, more complex
Yeah.
project.
See, reoriented the courtroom itself. Is that a better utilization of space?
You know, I think so, Nathan. And one of the things we were challenged with is that you have a lot of southern light that's gonna come through that glass. And so you don't want to cause glare when people are trying to see either the presenters or the monitor. And so we talked a lot internally with Dr. T about what we thought was best, and we reoriented it, and I do think it functions better.
What will that room hold? Courtroom?
Well, we designed it for 60, but I think, you know, if you had people. Basically like we had for the bid opening or even here tonight, where people are standing at the back, I think you can put. From a code review standpoint. Quite a bit more than that, but we're showing different options of chairs that hold 60, and then there's still a lot of seating space.
I was saying more from a like a staff meeting standpoint, you know, what level did you have a building meeting in there? Yeah, everything all staff thing.
Well, we talked about, when we worked with Kathy at CMBA, she does a great job of putting different furniture options, so she had one like this with, you know. Participants looking this way, then she put tables in with people on both sides to see what that would look like. So you could get quite a few more in a learning environment so that we could have professional development in there, so you could probably go up to easily up to 100. And depending on how you set up the furniture.
I think if you did tables and chairs like this and you spread it all across the space, you get close to 40, but if you were more condensed with a lot of chairs like this, then yeah, you're talking a lot more.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is the fun part, so thank you for letting me speak to it.
They just start seeing spaces.
Yes.
And just as a reminder, when we talk about facilities, a couple other pieces to this is one is reminder that the district office build is not part of the bond process. That's part of our cash process. So just so you're aware of that. And then the second piece I wanted to mention is that, and why the district office falls where it does is so that we could move out of this building and then we could start the plans for what happens in this building. So there's a expansion. Yeah, there's a domino effect, which is why we're having the conversation of district office. In addition to that, I also wanted to share with you, so you're all aware that the middle school entrance is coming along. We're waiting for fire window, is that the right glass, fire glass? Where's my glass? And so, but it's coming along, and so by the end of September, that should be all moved in, hopefully, and we'll be opening that, but everybody's been really great about being patient with that and making it work as it is, so that's coming along. So that's our facilities update.
Thank you. All right. Old business. I've got a few policies here. First, we have the second reading of new board policy 603.12 with possible action to waive third reading and approve. Do we have any comments or anything from the policy committee? All right.
I would motion that we approve. Waive for reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Next. Second reading of revised board policies as listed, a lot of those. With possible action to waive the third reading and approve, and this was just a normal kind of a routine. Go through all the policies, make sure that they're aligned with where we are right now.
Yeah, so we look at what,
A spot check.
what we get some guidance, and then we look at what's in practice, what's in policy, made some small tweaks, but that's where it says revised. But yeah, so we would have covered this last meeting and this is the second reading.
We have a motion to waive the third reading and approve.
Motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, last one is the second reading of rescinded board policy 501.09E1 with possible action to waive third reading and approve. My understanding is this kind of an addendum to an existing policy.
Yeah, and then it was rescinded, it's changed, so I will motion that we approve and waive the third reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Moving on to new business. Thank you to all of you who have patiently waited for us to honor the parliamentary procedure. Middle school kids did not hang around, but I don't blame them.
Yeah.
A lot of what we do here is boring, so let's have this talk. I'll give just a little overview quick on kind of where we're at with this, why we're here, what we're doing. Then we kind of have a board discussion on if this recommendation is appropriate that has been presented to us. And then I'll start with my thoughts and then everyone else can fight it out. So how we got here, we had several discussions over the last, few months. Really ramped it back up when the staff got here so that we could get the surveys out, things like that. And we had essentially these recommendations through the handbook created by staff after our workshop. And you can see it's listed there. And yeah, Gail's got it pulled up here. So in general, this is more strict than what we've had before. I've gotten some questions as to what this means in a handbook versus a policy and just what that terminology means. Because the handbook requires board approval, it has essentially the same weight as a policy that we would have because we have to follow the disciplinary process through the handbook, which is a board policy. So not discussing yet whether or not we like that, that is what it is, that is what those terms mean, so that you understand kind of what it is we're discussing. A few thoughts that I've had over the summer, and again, even more over the last, I would say, week or two, even as we continue to get more information and research all of this. To those who feel that this has been a long process, I would agree, and I don't feel bad saying that that's intentional, because whatever we decide, if it's going to stick, we need to honor that process and make sure that we don't have a rogue school board that's just slamming things through, putting things on paper that students, staff, and parents all recognize that if we pencil whip something, it's pretty easy to ignore that. So it's been a long process for me. I know a lot of you have heard some of the things I've talked about. What is our burden as a school board, as a governmental agency that has power and authority over children that are not our own? And then what is our cultural responsibility, societal responsibility as a board? Some of the nuances there, or the back and forth we've kind of discussed, or that I've had to process through myself as an official here is leadership training a function of the board? It's not reading, writing, or arithmetic, but it's still so culturally important that we've made it a part of our curriculum, and if it's a part of the curriculum, that's the letter of the law as far as the disciplinary procedure. We have to honor that. We have to do a good job with that. So there are things that we do that aren't necessarily part of the core purpose educationally that society and the community and the people that own this school district have said it's so important, you will also do that. And that's an important thing to recognize. It's also important to recognize that sometimes there are governmental entities or agencies or boards that take that to the extreme, and then we go the other side. And then we have a board and an agency that just goes in, wherever the wind blows, that's where they go, and we want to avoid that as well. A few key things that I've come to recently. There's a difference between a governmental entity requiring or compelling an action. Or simply saying, we're not going to allow that action. So if we were to say, I heard the comment earlier, you're placing phones in the hands of the kids, so the truest manifestation of that would be, in order to go to school at Gilbert, you must have a smartphone, you must send your kids with a smartphone because we're teaching them that. There's a much stricter standard when an agency like ours tells you to do something and requires you to do something, compels your actions, compels your behavior. There's a little bit less of a strict standard when we say, when you come here, you're not allowed to do this, or you're not allowed to bring this, so to speak. So again, I'm just talking personally for me as I process through a lot of the decisions that we're making here, because they're very weighty. To say, we don't want that here, there's a lower standard. Again, this is my opinion here, there's a lower standard for us to say, we don't want that here, than if we were to say, you must do this. There's a very high standard if we say you must do this, and that's not what we're doing when we're looking at essentially student behavior. We do have somewhat of a public health responsibility. Well, we absolutely have a public health responsibility because we bring thousands of people into our buildings. If we had, all kinds of health issues, or we had, illnesses running rampant through the school, we would be held accountable for that. We would be responsible for that. And because we provide the learning environment. So we do have some responsibility as to the things that are going on outside of strictly the educational component. That's not to say that there aren't mental health issues walking in the door, but we do have some responsibility with what's happening or what may begin in the school. Again, over the last few months, I would say it is clear to me that the cell phone, social media, all of those things, that global discussion, I would classify it as a public health crisis, as a public health problem that must be fixed in the various areas that it's in. Because we are responsible for the environment that the students are in, we do have a degree of responsibility for that public health concern within the walls of the school. Like I said, it's a weighty conversation. It's a lot of back and forth to get there. This was a discussion I had this morning with a very trusted individual in the area of mental health. 20, 30 years ago, when most of us were going to school, you would escape your bullying by coming home from school. We know that has kind of flipped now. Maybe not necessarily flipped, but you don't just escape bullying by leaving school now. For some children, many children, you could argue the numbers there. Because it is now a 24/7 thing. It was explained to me this morning and it was very profound, but there are a lot of kids that may be escaping bullying, escaping the negative mental health world that we live in school now, because the school is the most, in some unfortunate cases, the school may be the most responsible adults that these children have in their lives. So that's just a lot of me blabbing on. In general, those are my thoughts. You've seen what was recommended as a handbook change. The handbook change, because it's adopted through board approval, has disciplinary wise, it has the letter of the law. You can discipline through that, which means it's important, and it's not just one teacher or one staff member or one student trying to do what they want. It's more strict than what we have. I really appreciate the staff and the administration making a strong commitment to, like Mr. Ronka said in our workshop, we're gonna do some really good level setting, expectation setting. That being said, again, it's taken a long time to get here, and it should take a long time to get to some of these discussions. Let the board argue it out now, but to me, I'll just say, and whether or not it's important for you to hear this, but if that policy said from the time you get here until the time you leave, the only time the phone should be out is on explicit teacher approval, I would be in favor of that. There's an important component of the high school where they're learning how to use phones, and the teachers have the ability to do that. The kids need to learn how to use phones. The best way to keep kids, from accidentally shooting themselves is to expose them to firearms and, take away some of that unknown. But outside of, at the upper school levels, that important component of the teacher saying, for educational use, again, I'm not saying strongly that this is an absolute must. But I would say, and it took me a while to get here, if the policy explicitly stated, other than that narrow window, phones should not be in the hands of students at any point, passing times, lunchtime. Get the kids face to face, talking to each other. Again, these are public health things now. I would vote yes for that. I would vote yes for a policy that said, not at all, from the beginning to end of class. For all of the blabbing reasons that I have, all right? So, all right, ready to go.
So essentially, Josh, what you're saying is on like the document that we're reviewing is that you're currently recommending what we have listed under middle school would also be listed under high school. Right now, the differentiators between middle school and high school can both use phones during instructional time. Middle school cannot use it during lunch or passing time. High school can.
I'd like to see what the lunchroom looks like without the phones out. I think there's gonna be a lot of Band-Aids to rip off, and I think it's gonna be a tough sell initially, but I raised my kids to do it the hard way on purpose, and this could be one of those things.
What percentage of our kids eat lunch in high school?
I don't have a number for that.
That's fine. This was curious on that.
I mean, cafeteria seems full, but that doesn't, but we do have kids that leave, for lunch.
I acknowledge that is placing a burden on staff. I totally acknowledge that. It's just like I said, that's where I've gotten with it.
I want to start back with, which is great, I can't wait to hear the discussion. I just want to remind all of us of how this was created, right? And we all, including you, including us, including our parents that are here, have weighed in and our principals, our staff, we had, I don't know that this came out in the work session, but we had, I know we had parents on the kind of the petition that came forward, but there were many, many more parents that reached out beyond that. And I'm not sure that came out in the work session. And so I really do feel it is, this has come together with all those, in my opinion, and not necessarily, not everybody's voice is on this piece of paper in the sense of like, well, we want it this way or we want it that way. It's taking all that information, working with our administrators, working with our teachers to say, what is it? Where are we now? And what can we do to make it better than it has been? And where do we go from here? And that's how this recommendation has come to you this evening, just so you're aware. I mean, I know you know that, but I just wanted to remind all of us is that's all of those groups working together and having a voice, even though it may not reflect every individual voice of we want it this way or we want it that way. It's putting all that together to say, what does this look like for our students? So that's where it comes from. There, even since our work session and the feedback that you provided that night, there were tweaks that came from that, even from that work session, based on your feedback. And so that I just want to make sure I reminded everybody of that.
I feel like the work session went really well. I think we established that there's. In terms of distractibility in the classroom, that our classrooms are managed super well by our staff. I left, I wish we would have talked about the mental health issue a little bit more. Because I think that that wasn't part of the whole discussion. And so we maybe missed the mark a little bit there, and I'm the fault of that, because I was. Tired, it didn't speak up when I should have, right? But I'm gonna speak it up now, because I think that, even with the email that went out last week, right? Like, be able to, I have a responsibility here, right? And if something happens to one of their students, and it's linked to a cell phone in the school, I have responsibility for that, and I'm not willing to just. I don't know, I don't feel at peace, I guess, where we're at, because of that level of responsibility that we carry as a board. My other thought is that with instructional time, and I know this because I have a middle schooler that doesn't have a cell phone, that there is this, I mean, that there's kids that get to pull them out, and there's kids that don't have them to pull out, and I feel sad for my student that doesn't get to do that when other kids do, you know, so I think that we have to maybe be, I know it can be useful at times, but also I think that that is unfortunate for those kids that, where their parents are trying to do what's best for them and, you know, limit their cell phone use to 6th grade, like their neighbor gets to pull it out in class to listen to music and they don't, you know, there's just, I don't know. So I think that, that should be.
Is it necessary? I do it, I'm guilty, I do it at home, kids are driving me crazy, I've accomplished most of the things for the day, turn on a show. Okay, I like Bluey. But. Or could they sit and talk, you know, instead?
Yeah, well, and that is something that as we continue to work through, we just had a principals meeting last week, we had a wonderful meeting with our leaders. And that's one of the things that we talked about is that as we talk about, you know, we have, you know, outstanding instructional leaders. And so in talking to their staff about some of those discussions that we had just talked about, you know, 2 weeks prior about when is it okay to have music out, or when is it okay to say if you finished your work, you know, and how that maybe is something that we in the past nationwide, not necessarily good, you know, that we say, oh, let's make that maybe the 3rd or 4th or never thing, you know, kind of a reminding ourselves of some of those good practices that getting back to, and we have great staff and they'll continue to do that, and our wonderful leaders will help them do that, and those are the conversations we're having, which that's important too, that we're talking about all those pieces and what that looks like, and so.
My quick thoughts. I mean, I do believe we need to look at every school in a different way. I think there's a difference between an 11-year-old or 12-year-old 6th grader and an 18-year-old senior. And I think we put them all in the same boat and say, I just don't think that's fair. I mean, we're asking these 18-year-olds to go out to the real world, go, you know, enlist in the army, go to college, go get a job. And yet we're treating them like a 6th grader. I don't think that's right. Again, my opinion on that. I don't, again, I've said this from the beginning, I don't think they should be in the classrooms, but educational purposes. But I don't have an issue with them being in the hallway, right or wrong, that's my opinion on that. I also think, again, I go back to this is, you know, this is a weapon or this is a tool, and the answer to me is yes, it's both. It is a weapon that is not great, but it's also a tool. And how do we teach these kids that it could be a tool and also the dangers of them as well? But in pushing from the get-go, since the day this came up, is we need to have a curriculum based around this. To teach these kids at a young age what this is and walk them all, start this in elementary, all the way through high school, and teach these kids what the negatives are, but also what it could be used for in a positive light as well. And I am a big proponent for that. I see you have a curriculum committee on that. I would happy to be a part of that. I would love to be part of that. But again, what you propose today, I am fully in favor of. But with all that said, the beauty of us putting this in the handbook is we can change it at any given moment. It is
We
not,
change the handbook every month.
we can do any, it's not something that all of a sudden, if things aren't going,
Be terrible for staff, but
yeah,
we can.
it doesn't.
No, terrible for parents, because you have to sign off on it every single time. So, sorry about the email.
And again, there's consequences. And again, we've made it very clear, I believe, in our last meeting that this is a serious topic. And to teachers, we don't want teachers just saying, pull your cell phones out. That's not what we want. When they, you know, to pull out, listen to music or pull out whatever else, that's not what we're asking teachers to do. We're asking them to minimize the amount of cell phone use in the classroom as much as possible. We don't want them out. But I also go talk to a Byron Tinder, and the first thing he tells me is, Andrew, we use them all the time as we read sheet music off of it. Every single day, we have that in our classroom, or reading sheet music off of it. That's a tool. That is not a weapon, that's a tool. And so we've got to figure out how to balance this and not just say, yep, we got to put them all away for everybody at even at 18 years old. We got to teach these kids what is right and what is wrong. And again, if they're on our Wi-Fi, they can't access the social media. I mean, so again, we can, I know they get on the cellular data and all that, but how do we, can we figure out from a parenting standpoint, is there ways that we can shut that off when they're in school and just have them go through Wi-Fi? Well, then they can't access social media. Is there other things we can do as parents and community members to help out with that? So again, I personally am all in favor of what's proposed today. I'm going to push the curriculum heavily, because I think that's where, as an educational system, that's where we can help these kids, not just take them away, not just letting them use them, is understanding what the good and the bad is of these cell phones. So that's my thoughts.
Can you tell us more about the curriculum? I know that we talked initially about ideas, concepts, getting a unilateral strategy across buildings, but where do you see this going? Because I think it'll be an evolution.
Great question. A couple things I wanted to mention about the curriculum. One is the part that's different that I'm really proud of, and this really came from your work and information that I heard from parents is the idea of curriculum. What I'm not hearing, with no disrespect to our neighbors and our partners in other school districts, I'm not hearing other school districts talk about this particular piece. So I'm really proud of this as a beginning. Now, where it goes, of course, that's the hard work. It's good to have the idea, but now we have to dive in and do the hard work. And really we have some resources. I would not say not mountains of resources, but we have some resources that include video and lessons. And that's really the idea around the curriculum committee, is to say what's available to us and how is it appropriate for grade levels, to say, you know, what, just to your point, Andrew, you know, what maybe a third or fourth or fifth grader might need to know around a cell phone might look different than what we need a sixth or seventh grader to know. And so that will be the work of that committee, is to say, what are the resources, what's available to us, and then how can we put it by grade level? And they'll work with our director of teaching and learning, Carrie Clark, to say, this seems appropriate, and not just, you know, one lesson, like, oh, we're done, we learned all about cell phones, that's done. No, we know it's ongoing. And so putting that curriculum committee together, and you can see the list has all the different ages, people represented from each building, starting with intermediate. And so they would be, we also asked, I asked Andrew as a parent, this idea was something that he felt passionate about. So, and then also I have a high school student on there, Matt Zaz, and then we may have others that will join in, but this was our initial group. And to say, this is the curriculum for each grade level, making sure so that we're not teaching the same thing every grade. They're like, oh yeah, we've heard this, so that it is, so it does go from grade level to grade level, build on it, scaffolds is the learning. And then in addition to that, that's how I see the parent resources, is that what kinds of resources also in that work with the curriculum committee can we provide to parents? Like we talked about at the work session, like maybe it's parenting classes, maybe it is, but maybe it's just a minute and a half video that we come across to say, you know, here's something you need to know. Did you know? Because you know, technology changes fast. I don't know about all of you, but sometimes you think, oh, I know all about Snapchat. And then you find out there's 4 more called something else that are fast and our kids are already onto it. So how do we learn those things so that we can pass them on as parents, but pass them on to our parents as well? So I see it initially as curriculum for our students to help them use it as a tool. And then also I want to really help us put together resources for parents, and that would be a beginning to say what's out there, what's available, just to help our parents stay up on what's new in technology related to cell phones, whether it's apps or whether it's ways to turn cell phones off at certain times and things like that. Sometimes parents just don't even know how to begin with some of those, and maybe we can help with that.
Is it the staff versus non-staff, inside, outside? Is it possible, I'd love to see a medical provider or like a mental health practitioner in that committee?
Absolutely. Yep,
I'd love
we're
to see
just
both.
starting that, and so we absolutely, mental health provider, and what did you say? What was the other one?
A medical provider,
Medical provider, okay,
pediatrician,
absolutely,
if we know any of those.
we do. We know a few. Pediatricians and mental health providers, so, yeah, I think that's an important point. I also think maybe a couple more students, because I want to hear from their perspective, they usually are the ones that know before we do about apps and things like that, so.
At least a few students from different backgrounds.
Correct.
We have a lot of rock star students that are involved in everything, like get a good spattering of kids. Because they know themselves better than we do.
Yes, good. Happy to do that. Did that answer your question, Nathan, about?
Yeah, it did, and for the pile on what you had said, Josh, part of what we've all been trying to do is gather as much information as we can from a lot of sources. We want to make the most well-informed decision. We take our time to be very thorough. This is an incredibly important topic, but even when compared to that, we want to have the right voices involved, the right professionals. As Melissa had said, we really talked a lot about the last work session. Is this a distraction? Is it a deterrent in the school, in the classroom? Is a disciplinary issue? The administration staff helped us understand that fortunately we don't have a lot of problems there, but then that brings us to, okay, well, then it's more the mental health. We had heard that earlier as well, that there's a lot more of that aspect, which is a little harder to quantify with some of this. So, yeah, I think I really like that idea. You did answer the question, but I think that that's gonna be an evolution of the different voices, and hopefully we mature that curriculum too.
Well, and I think the idea about mental health professional or medical provider on the committee will help too, because there are, there's lots of information out there about, and maybe to your point, Mel, I should have talked more about in some of the research that I've done around, it does, I mean, that's what it talks about, is that mental health and mental wellness and what that looks like. And so, and if we're limiting use of where kids are used to that, then what else are we providing them in that? Like, are we teaching them social skills about how to have a conversation and how to say beyond, how are you today? Good, how else can we, there's other components to that, and so helping them on that side as well.
Mindy, what's your thoughts?
I like leaving this in the handbook, not creating a policy. It makes it more flexible for us to change and adapt as we need it to. But yeah, it still, I'm with Josh, it still has consequences and the ability to discipline behind it. It's not like it's like, well, it says it in the handbook, it doesn't mean anything. Definitely means something. I also agree with Andrew that I don't think we should treat our junior seniors the same way we treat our 4th, 5th, 6th graders. It's scary when you start giving your kids cell phones. I totally get it. It's also super scary when you give your 14-year-old car for the first time. It's a weapon, it's a tool. It's a weapon, it's a tool. And part of our job, I still hold to as parents and community, is teaching them how to use these items more as tools and less as weapons. And so I like what we have right now as our proposal for the handbook, that we have this stair-step approach. And I think, we can start with this for the high school. If we see there's problems, if we see there's issues, this gives us the flexibility to change things, but we have parameters in place right now. We're making those parameters more specific, or maybe a little bit more spelled out so people understand them a little better. It's certainly, we're not Wild West here with this and just saying like, well, anybody can phone whatever they want, doesn't really matter. We're definitely giving guidance, but we're leaving ourselves flexible to adapt and change if needed. So I like what we have proposed right now.
I will say too, and I know this may come up, I don't know if I say this correctly, so I will apologize if anybody takes offense to it, but. I don't like how society now puts so much pressure on the schools and the staff. I just don't. I mean, the mental health, everybody shoots right back at this. And nobody cares more about these kids than the staff. Nobody. And staff, the teachers, all those cares about those kids more than anybody else.
Well, their parents.
And well, their parents, yeah, but I meant in regards to, sorry, as a whole, as a whole. And so there's so much pressure on these staff now to solve every single problem in society. And I think that's wrong, okay? It is so easy to solve your problems as a family in your family. It is a very easy thing to do. I can solve my problems with my kids, no problem. But to solve them for everybody's is very, very difficult. And we'd love to push all the pressure back on the school because we're the taxpayers, we're the ones that pay them, we're the ones who do everything else, and you have to solve our problems. And I think that's totally unfair because they're trying to parent, not a big group of people with all different backgrounds and all different beliefs, okay? And I just don't like when we constantly are putting all the stress on, and again, mental health is a major issue. We're gonna do everything we can for these kids every single day. But to sit there and say, well, you gotta fix the school, you gotta fix the school. No, we gotta fix it. The community's gotta fix it. The parents gotta fix it. Everybody's gotta fix it. And we're gonna do everything we can as a community to do that. But I don't like putting everything back on the school. I just think, and you mentioned this before, and we've had this discussion many times. And we live in a great community. We live in a great school district. And we do everything we can for these kids. But to sit there and say, well, no, it's your fault. If something else happens to a kid's school, that's your fault. That's unfair. That is completely and utterly unfair. And I've heard that. And I'm not saying anybody in this room is saying that. I'm just saying I've heard that. And to get those emails as a school board member is tough. It is very tough. And I know as I was speaking to the staff, when they get those, hits them very hard. So, and I know they get them. I'm looking at Cindy Bassett. I know she's got those emails and it's hard. Okay, so that's all. I just want to throw that out there. I know it's not really on this topic, but I think as a community, we got to get better. We're going to continue to get better. We live in an absolutely amazing place. Okay, there's no better place that I want to raise my kids in Gilbert, Iowa. And we will get better, but whatever is decided upon today, this is not the end all. We're going to continue to get better on this. Again, this is a topic that is going to be ever evolving. Cell phones are a major part of mental health. There is no argument there from my standpoint on that. Now, what's beyond and what can we do to get those better for the kids? Again, I go back to the curriculum piece. It's not taking them out of their hands. It's my belief, not the board's belief. That's my belief. What can we do to educate these kids to understand what the negatives are? And then not only the kids, the parents. Because again, it goes right back to the parents and everybody in this room, everybody that I would say we communicate with, those are the parents that we're not so much worried about. It's the parents that we can't get in front of. How do we get in front of those parents and talk to them about the negatives? That's what we have to do as communities, get in front of those parents that aren't as actively involved in their kids. So, sorry, I went on a rant there and I apologize.
I like rants.
But I mean, I've heard some like this high schoolers shouldn't have their devices during lunch and passing times to get them to engage more. If you've been in the high school during lunch, it's not silent. They're talking. If you've been in the high school during passing of class periods, it's not silent, it's noisy. So they're not all just coming out of class and walking like robots to their next class and not talking to each other and then sitting down and putting their phone away. It's noisy in high school during lunch. It's noisy. So they do communicate, they do interact. Do they have devices? Yes, but I don't think that it's silence in there and they're just all heads in devices and not talking to each other. So again, I'm like, as our kids get older, we have to give them more responsibility. That's our job. And that's my job as a parent, is to give my children more responsibility to ultimately send them out into the world on their own and be able to function and live without me hovering over them. And so I think our high schoolers should have more responsibility than our middle schoolers in various aspects, in various ways. And I think phones is one of them.
I have a couple questions that I came up with just now. Is this? Gail, I can talk to the people out there, right? Since it's on the agenda. Okay, I have a question for a parent. The one that, Doug? Here's my question. Since you were bold enough to initiate the public forum, I'm gonna pick on you. Thank you for that. If we did not do anything with phones, it's a free for all. how would you protect your children? Like, give me the action. I'm not asking for like a doom and gloom, I'm gonna move to, the third world country, like. Describe for me the actionable steps that you would take as clearly a responsible parent to mitigate the risk that the school district failed to do at that point. Like as I think about this, like, what could you do or what would happen as parents if this wasn't even a topic of discussion? Because that's what I want to know is in the absence of a change here, what could you do? And I would also eventually have a question for staff and say, in the absence of a policy or an absence of a change in this, could we reach the measurable outcome of mental health changes and interactive changes with the students, behavioral changes without it? Could it be done without? And if it didn't, what would be done from a parent side? So I'm really putting you on the spot there, sorry.
That's okay. We have tried to foster some level of responsibility with our kids when it comes to things. And so we have times of the day that our kids and us are required to put our cell phones on the counter and turn off all the notifications of the phone. Things like that. If the school said that they were not going to make any restrictions, whatever that means, we would have a very difficult decision to make about whether or not our child would be allowed to have fun at school and what type of fun they could have. On the one hand, protecting our kid is very important to us, and taking away their phone doesn't really protect them, as I said, because every one of their friends has a smartphone. And every one of their friends has the ability to make that phone schedule they choose to. But on the other side of it, just because everyone else has something doesn't mean okay. And so we have to weigh the balance of ostracizing a child against what's good for them. And that's what we would try to do. I don't know what that would look like exactly. I can tell you that for me personally, I'm actually in the process of transitioning back to a flip phone. Because I understand how the social media is to me. And I understand how they do this to everybody else in this room. That's too. And so I think that the challenge here is that it's a community-based thing where you don't have community involvement. And so the person who you were talking to this morning who described the control as reversing is really bright, because what's essentially happening is you have all these things that we would love to see, but the only control that exists. And so when there's an absence of discipline everywhere else, then you have to enhance it here to make up for it. And it doesn't make it fair or right. And I don't disagree with the sentiment that a 6th grader is different than an 8th grader or is different than a 12th grader. But at the end of the day, what's on that phone is so dangerous that it's still worth it. So I hope that answered your question. If not,
the answer is whatever you said. That was good. I appreciate that. Thanks for letting me pour you out here. From a staff perspective, I'll ask Cindy, what can be done without it? I mean, we see all the news articles and say, the lunchroom is now a vibrant, place of discussion without phones. And I said that I've never sat through lunch in the high school yet. Don't tell the kids that. I'm gonna sneak in someday.
No sneaking, you have to sign them in the office.
Well, thanks for asking, first of all. What can be done without it? We can do whatever we need to do. We can do whatever we need to do. It is hard to think of speaking in absolutes when you talk about 9th or 12th graders, certainly, as was brought up. I noticed a couple of times it was brought up of, well, we don't want it to be too hard on staff, or we know that to be hard on staff, and where I appreciate that. I do want to say that's not our concern. I mean, our staff, our teachers aren't concerned about that. As administrators, we're not concerned about that. We will do what is best for our kids. That's what we love doing. And so no cell phones at lunch. Our lunchroom will sound the same. It will sound, if no cell phones are at lunch. The hardest part about that is us figuring out how to make sure there's no cell phones at lunch as adults, right? The kids will still talk to each other. Some of the boys will need to find a different game to play with each other. And get loud about that, which right now they get loud about the games they play with each other on their cell phone, right? But so different, that our lunch will sound the same, it will be noisy. Our passing time will sound the same, it will be noisy. In the classroom, our teachers will have to, they will have to change instructional methods in a number of cases. They will have to not simply assume that when they have that 5-minute break in the middle of their 85-minute block, that students will, students won't be on their cell phones. Yeah, that is something our teachers not always but often allow to happen. Is the kids get on their cell phone during the 5-minute break or 10-minute break, or they're allowed to check their phones. So that won't happen, but that won't change the entire class. It won't change how class operates. That a little bit of freedom. The changes in the operations for instruction and for teachers will be that they can't rely on taking out the cell phone and use it as a tool at times. That, and again, that's where you guys as the board and us at times in the classrooms have to weigh is, that's the importance of each.
How difficult would that be? I mean, practically,
It would
How
take time. It would be difficult.
because if it's that important, then we should be buying the devices. Yeah, if it's that an important part of the curriculum. We buy the curriculum, not the parents.
Yeah.
Argue we're already one to one,
We've
right?
spoken about that before. That's a great point. It's some things just work better, quicker on a cell phone. Sometimes it just adds that app runs faster on the cell phone, but at the same time, we would make adjustments if we need to. We would make adjustments if we need to.
But I would just like to add, thank you, Cindy, if I may, it's just the point about, I'm really grateful to all of you as a board in the conversations we've had, the listening that you've done to our parents that have been working on this and communicating on all sides of it. Everyone has different feelings and emotions around it, and I believe we've all said, we all care deeply about a mental health issue. I think that is almost goes without saying, but we should continue to talk about it, hence the Gilbert Collective and the work we're doing there as well. And so, but all of those pieces coming together is really where this recommendation is. And as you mentioned, there may be changes as we continue to go forward. Whether it's through the collective or even as I shared at the work session, I believe is that there's even talk, there might be legislation that comes forward. And so this might be a transitional step to that. And parents, as Mr. Beard shared, make adjustments and staff would make adjustments as we see through that work. But I think it's important to also remember that I'm really appreciative to everyone that has sent an email here tonight, community meeting, and came to the work session. I mean, there's been a lot, reading the book of the anxious generation and what that looks like and all the different pieces. I've had parents send me articles and I take the time to go through and read all those. And so, I mean, we know that this is mental wellness is a enormous issue and an important one. And I appreciate Andrew, you talking a little bit about what it does to staff as we think through wanting to do what's best for our kids at all times. And at the same time, it can be very difficult to say we're going to do it all this way or all that way. And that, because we have parents who have emailed saying, I can give lots of examples on both sides, parents saying they need their child to have that for this reason, or they don't want their child to have it for that reason. I mean, we have parents that feel that on all sides. And so that's why this decision, as we look at it as a regulation, is difficult. But I will tell you, I like the idea. It's why I brought you the recommendation of a regulation and not a policy yet, because I do think it's evolving. And I do want to see what that curriculum looks like so that we can teach our students how to utilize it as a tool. In Arizona, in my previous experience, there was it was a different time, so it wasn't cell phones, but there was an organization called Not My Kid. I'm not even sure if the organization's still in existence, But it really did teach parents about things that you think, well, that might happen in your home, but that doesn't happen in my home. And when in fact, there are lots of things that we learn along the way of like, these are the things kids are looking at, apps they're accessing that they shouldn't be. And as parents, you're like, ooh, I didn't know this was that. And so it's teaching us as parents. And so that's the part of the curriculum that teaching kids, but also offering resources to our families could help us as a community all do better. And that's, to me, using all the voices that have come forward to help us make a decision in this area at this time.
I'll wrap it up after everyone's done making comments.
I just wanna add on, I really appreciate all the advocacy. We've had a tremendous amount of people reach out to us with varying opinions, but the community engagement on this has been excellent, and we really done our best to be receptive. There's a lot of information coming at us and trying to make the best informed decision we can.
I will also say too, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I'll speak on behalf of myself to say, I mean, you've got a good board up here, and we don't just sit here, I know we've all made calls beyond just emails that we get. And we all are constantly calling people, every time we see somebody in the grocery store, we see them in a ball game. We see them, walking by, we ask them these topics, what do you think, what are your thoughts, give us your opinions, I mean, that's our job, is to just listen. We don't ever tell them, yep, we're doing this, or yep, we do a lot of that, and again, I've been through COVID sitting up here, and this is easy. I mean, COVID's hard. Because COVID, I mean, we were literally, I'll be honest, we were killing their kids, either mentally or physically. That was the decision in COVID. How am I gonna kill your kid? That was what I had to vote on. And so that was hard. This is easy. I mean, this is pretty easy stuff. And again, we try to listen to everybody we can, take what we feel is the best that we feel for the community, and then go forward. So
We are somewhat limited by as it's written in the agenda, because it's new business. So this is essentially the vote that we would be taking is to approve or not approve the change in the handbook. I'll change the handbook every month if we have to, if we need to. Like I said, that's going to be terrible for everyone but the 5 of us to go through a handbook change. All we have to do is vote for it.
Can't wait to sign.
Well, my wife does.
Oh, okay, nice. Nice.
Yeah. Like I said, we will approve or not approve this. We can't write a handbook in this meeting and approve it and take action on it. I think it's very important that we continue to have the conversation, and I think I talked about the term commander's intent in the workshop. It should be very clear to staff and admin what the commander's intent of their application of this handbook should be, right? We've been sitting here talking for a while, whether or not it's codified tonight in any specific way. There should be no question what the community is asking for in the application of this handbook, what we've discussed in the application of this handbook. And we will, I said, in general, good rule of leadership always is to trust staff until you have a reason not to, and I trust the staff. So we've heard what we have going forward, and like I said, we'll change the handbook every month if we have to. I want a work session with everyone in the room beyond ours. And anyone that wants a seat is welcome, but this is my goal, and at some point in the next 60 days, I think it'd be great to do that. And I identify where you're at, and I'm gonna hand pick where everyone sits at the table to maximize the amount of yelling and screaming, and we're gonna have a good discussion. That would be my goal. Now, that's not an action item that we could take, but I want to keep it going, keep the discussion going. But as it stands tonight, we need to either approve or not approve the handbook as written. We have a motion one way or the other.
I will make a motion to approve the update to the handbook as written, as presented.
Cool, second.
On,
I just say, just one comment, the way I see it. If we don't approve it, then we don't put in more clarity around the language. And we can read this in a month anyway, so.
It is stricter than it was.
Exactly. So this is a win-win with the current confines that we're in.
We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Moving on. Consider/approve resolution approving the fiscal year 25 distribution of state funds designated as salary supplements for education support personnel.
Okay, I am going to, the legislators provided funding, and I'm gonna let Gail talk a little bit about that and how we came to a decision of how to honor our hourly employees based on how long they've been with the district. So Gail, you want to just talk a little bit about that?
So, we received, as it says in the resolution, $45,663 to distribute to, support staff that are either part-time or full-time, and it would go to, regularly employed, or permanently employed, part-time or full-time, people that clock in and out, so we call them our hourly people, not salary, but they're hourly. And so we've talked about, how do you distribute this equally, there's many ways you can do it, and so we worked with our local, communities, talking to them about what are they using. Some people are using it as a stipend for attendance. Some people are doing it as hiring bonuses. And we just collectively decided that the one thing that we feel like we want to compensate our employees for their longevity, to staying with us. It takes a lot of time and energy to onboard people, to educate people. And once they're here, we appreciate them staying. And so working with Vic, with the HR department, and I and Dr. Trio, we came up with a decision, and we feel like how we can compensate our employees to hopefully let them know we appreciate them and that we want them to stay on board with us. And that we would give them a stipend based on their years of service. And it would become in 2 payments. So if our hourly people, as of October 1, that's kind of our count day, just like it is for students. If you're employed with us on October 1. And if you are in the years of service in this chart, you would receive 50% of the stipend in December. And if you're still employed with us, the final payment or the remaining 50% would be paid out in June. It's pretty simple, and it's based on longevity.
Real quick, I will abstain from this vote just because I have a spouse who is categorized, so I will not be voting on this, just FYI. You can make note of that, Gail.
I will.
Thank you.
Is this just for this year? As a
One time only.
It's a one time only, so
Yeah, it was.
it's not a recurring thing, like it could be if they vote on it again.
This is just one time, and we're treating it as a one-time stipend. It is subject to FICA, not acres. And so, so it is, it's basically on the House File 2612, which has also had some Part 88 things with it, and this is a piece of that supplemental. We had heard there was money coming, wasn't sure how it was coming or if it's, because I don't know if you've heard, but early on it was they wanted to guarantee all support star hourly people were getting $15 an hour. Well, we've been at $15 an hour for at least 2 years. So then we were concerned, so we had to give, it's been a while, I think it was probably 6 months ago. We had to report how many FTEs we had and their salaries. So then we weren't sure what or if we were actually gonna get anything, and then come early July, we received a one-time stipend of this $45,000. And it's like, okay, so then we're like, we have the money, how are we gonna distribute it? So this is collaborative, we came up with this, right, wrong or different, I think it's pretty good. We feel good about it, and it's one way to, show support of our staff and thank them for staying on with us.
Gil, do you have the list in front of you of how many people are from 21 up? Just so,
Yeah.
I think it's a
So,
good number to
To give you
share.
an idea, we have 12 new employees, which would be year one. We have 50 employees between year 2 and 5. We have 25 employees year 6 and 10. We have 7 at 11 to 15, 7 at 16 to 20. We have 2 at 21 to 25, and we have 2 at 26 and plus.
And those are all hourly employees.
And this might sound like a rhetorical question, but I'm assuming that the recommendation you made satisfies all the requirements that were given to us of how we can use these funds.
Pretty flexible. We have some districts that have linked, some, want to say, performance to it, and, I don't know what exactly the word it would be for, and, there's been, some conversations that maybe might not be the best way to do it, but the bill itself allows a lot of flexibility and a lot of local control. So we felt this was pretty dry cut, and it says, basically compensate everybody that is an hourly employee, part-time. And now, these would be regular employees that, are working regularly. So, we employ a lot of people, and so it would, so if they clock in and out, that's kind of the indication of being an hourly.
So the example Gil and I discussed is, for example, if you are, unfortunately, I mean, we're so grateful for your service, but if you're not an employee and you're just maybe you, come and help us out playing the piano, or you are on the coaching staff.
No
or
substitute.
no substitutes, they would not qualify for this, so it would be people that are employed hourly, and so, I think longevity and service is.
Yeah.
There's, right now this won't go into effect until October 1st, but right now we will have 105 employees.
That would fall.
That would
So
benefit,
it's not counted, so counting.
105.
And we're just talking over here, that would be both part-time and full-time hourly.
That's all part-time,
Okay.
105.
Well, I mean, I agree that I like recognizing people for their years of service and for staying with us. It is a lot of work to replace people and rehire people. It's also expensive to replace people and rehire. And so I like giving staff that have been here even 1 year, because we appreciate you being here for 1 year, and we hope you're here for 10 more. I think it's great to give them this bonus, in this manner, so I like it. We need to take a vote on this. We need to take a vote on this. Yes, consider
There's a
approve.
text
Okay.
resolution that is here.
Okay, so I
Spells it
will
out.
motion to approve this fiscal year 25 distribution of state funds to the support personnel.
I'll second. Colin, Nathan, sorry, yes.
All in favor?
I
All opposed?
abstain.
With,
Andrew.
all abstain?
Yeah.
Andrew abstained.
I was report that.
Thank you, Gail. Pay raise.
Next, we have first reading of revised board policy 501.09 chronic absenteeism and truancy. And 50109R1 chronic absenteeism and truancy regulation. Anything from the policy committee?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Oh,
is,
yeah.
this is new state law that schools are required to follow. So you'll see in the policy, they have like the previous policy there and everything's struck out in the new language that follows the law there is in green. And the policy itself isn't very exciting. And where the excitement happens is over in the regulation. And that's where you get down to what does this actually mean when the rubber meets the road? Yeah, Dr. T, the district is working on a really nice graphic, similar to that kind of graphic that we saw in the cell phone regulation, a similar graphic that will go out to parents and stuff on the chronic absenteeism policy so people can understand it. But there's this kind of stair step of chronic absenteeism, when it needs to turn into a absentee prevention plan and when you become considered truant. And at what points do we have to notify the county attorney, and at what points do parents need to be notified, and at what points do parent meetings need to come into play, and what's considered an absence. And basically it's, if you're gone from school, it's considered an absence. Yes, so Dr. D, what do you got?
Yes. So this is, we will be sharing more information with parents. This is a tricky one, I will tell you, and it is not ironed out. And sometimes that's how things come to us from the legislature, as they say, here, we're making this change, but we don't quite. We know you need more guidance and we'll get to it, but that's, they haven't provided that just yet on everything. But, and if Troy Banning has his way, he says, I'm gonna do a video on chronic absenteeism. Doesn't that sound exciting? So I'm like, no. So we'll see. So we can get information out to parents, but to Mindy's point, what the policy states in the regulation is that what we used to think is if an absent is excused or unexcused, and now it's whether it's exempt or non-exempt. And it all counts towards, it could all count towards truancy. And so, or chronic absenteeism, which then there's some triggers in the language about, well, then you have to send a letter to the county attorney's office about attendance and what that looks like. And so, so it's a little different for parents than it has been in the past. And so, for example, if parents in the past, maybe they took a winter holiday right before we actually went on winter holiday, and that might have been excused or unexcused in the work, and now it's all listed under as a non-exempt. And so we'll have to, it's confusing for us, but we'll have to be sharing that with parents. And what that means is that it could lead to your student has missed so many days that now we have to have a meeting and we have to have a plan, and the plan will then trigger letters out to the county attorney. What will the county attorney do with the letters? That's up to them. We don't know. And so we'll see what that looks like. So this, and I want to state, this is not the Gilbert School District. I had a parent came up to me from another district and said, the district is doing this. Can you believe that? And I said, that is not the district. That is state law that has come into play. So this is about chronic absenteeism. The policy committee has done a great job of going through and taking pieces of what ISB has proposed and putting this as a first read for all of you. And then we'll be communicating that out to parents. And this will also change things in the handbook. So there'll be another potentially handbook shift once it goes through second and third read. So I know that isn't as clear as I would like it, and I apologize to everyone for that, but that is really the guidance of where we are, of what we've received from the State Department.
Is this unique to Iowa, or is this in other states already?
I do not know the answer to that. My understanding is, well, I don't know the answer, let's say that, but I do know.
Was it in Arizona?
It was not.
Okay.
No, and it'll be a communication piece with families, and it will be challenging because it's new learning, but there's For example, one question I've already had is maybe your child leaves school every Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock for speech therapy, because we all know how difficult it is to get appointments, but we try to make them outside the school day. And someone said, well, that shouldn't count against them as it relates to an absence. And now what it's being stated is it will count. And then what does that mean? And there's pieces in there like, well, but it's a medical appointment, and if we have documentation, does it count towards chronic absenteeism? Or maybe it just counts towards absent but not chronic. And so that's what we're trying to iron out, are all those little nuances that come when kids have to miss school. Everyone knows being in school is the most important thing, and we want to continue to promote that. And that's what this is about, is trying to get away from kids being gone.
The goal too, I would say, when you read this policy, you'll see that it says like, a student is considered, if they're considered absent from school more than 10% of the hours in the semester, they're considered chronically absent. But then in the an education piece that we're gonna put out towards parents, we'll turn that 10% number into days. So parents can then understand more, okay, 10% of the hours in the semester is, how many days is that, you know, and so we'll have that in that education piece. I think that will.
And right now, that is, just in case you're wondering how many days, 7 days first semester, 8 days second semester. So it gives you a guideline, and then it increases from there. And then 10% is one thing that needs to happen, 15% is another thing that happens, and then 20%, there are other things that have to take.
Make it simple.
Yeah. I'll say that, when we reviewed this policy committee, it's clear that the administration had already reviewed it, come up with a lot of the data points. We made some adjustments, but want to make sure this aligned with all the other expectations. And while this is issued by the state, we did try to make this sensible for what would work well for how Gilbert does things. And I really appreciate that there'll be communication coming out, because there are all these different thresholds to find, and it can get quite confusing. So I look forward to that being sent out to clarify things for parents.
Will that communication out to parents, will we have to wait until we go through second read on this? Before that policy is technically in place?
I think, but I
If
think
we
we
wait
could,
to third reading.
I think we could send it out saying pending board approval, pending board
this would be-
reporting on second and third reading or
Once you
something
approve,
like
once you do
that.
first reading here and approve this, we can
Yes.
send it out saying pending board approval. Next month, do second if possible, wait the
Yes.
third.
Because I am getting questions from parents, and some of them we're able to answer, and some of them we have to call the State Department and say, what about this, what about that? And sometimes they have an answer for us, and sometimes they said, oh, no one's asked us that question yet.
And I had talked to a parent that has already changed vacation plans that they had for their family later in this year. Once they heard that this was going into play, like, okay, well, we're not gonna take a vacation then and pull our kids out of school, because that would count towards these days and hours. We're gonna change our plans. So I think the earlier we can get things out to families,
Yes.
as they start looking forward to Christmas break and spring break and those sorts of things.
The other thing there is, because of one of the many hats you wear with budget, I just wanted to point this out, is that it does say in the policy and in the law that was written that the letters have to be mailed to parents and to the county attorney's office by certified mail. And that could potentially be $12 a student.
Per letter, no.
Per letter.
Per letter.
Yeah.
Because one to each, it's 6 for each, right? Which could get expensive. And hopefully not, but you'd be surprised. There was, when we looked at the numbers from last year, it was a pretty significant number of students. When we started down this path, I thought, oh, it won't be that many for us. It was over 200 that were on the list from last year.
Fell into the
That would have
threshold. of
fell into
chronically
the
absent,
threshold
that we had to send letters.
of the percentages.
$2,400 in postage.
So it's, so we all need to work on that. That's what we have to say. We all have to work on that. So
But other superintendents are having those conversations.
they are.
Capital.
I attended 2 superintendent meetings of 2 different groups of superintendents, and probably half of the agenda was all about chronic absenteeism, frustrations around trying to implement and trying to get answers at the same time. Because we want to give the right answers. We want to be able to guide parents in what needs to happen, and we want to follow the law. So we're trying to manage all those pieces.
There's just a reading, there's no action on that, as well as this next one, the first reading of reviewed board policies as listed in the 200 series. Any comments? Nathan?
Those are mostly about how the board functions, we have really very minor things. I don't have much to report on that, anything. It was all pretty straightforward, except more minor grammatical things than it was substantive.
These are part of a 5-year review cycle that the policy committee is working on.
The 200 series is just part of our 5-year cadence review.
Next, we have the first reading of revised board policies 20205, student school board representatives, and 204 code of ethics. Again, this is the first reading. Just kind of getting it out there. Next, we have the first reading again of revised board policies 502.1, use of motor vehicles, and 700, purpose of non-instructional and business services. Anything on either of those?
And we'll say on the student school board representatives, that is an optional. Also, we talked a lot about that and wanted to have that be a little more flexible. So that we can have different options with engaging the students, so you'll see that language in there, but we talked quite a bit about both of these as well, to make sure they're in keeping with the best tradition of Gilbert.
Also, I just, if I may, want to compliment our policy committee. They, yes, yes. They work really hard and go through every ounce of every policy and every space and making sure it's all, not only that it's grammatically correct, which is always important, but really most importantly, that it matches what we do and what we represent in Gilbert. And I know that as we go through the 5-year cycle, that our policies will be stronger from the work that you all do. So thank you for your time, your energy, because we meet together. But I know that it's your work that you do outside of that. And I'm really grateful to you for that. So thank you for all your hard work.
Next, we have consider / approve the high school JED program services agreement.
So what you have in front of you there, Mrs. Bassett is here to talk a little bit about the program or answer any questions that you may have of putting this in place and working with this program to speak their mental health update. So do you have a few things you'd like to comment on?
Sure, absolutely, and then whatever questions you have. JED is, it's the JED Foundation. This is an organization that works with universities and since 2020 with high schools as well. They work in suicide prevention and post-prevention. And so with that, we're signing a contract with JED. We work with JED for 3 years. We're a mental health support specialist that comes from JED and works specifically with our school. And what they do is they look with us, what are we doing? What are our strengths? What gaps do we have that we need to work on? They make suggestions and then they work with us through those suggestions over, like I said, that next, after they do an initial study with us over that next 2.5 years. We, are in a time period of a lot of difficult things that we know we are not always the experts on. So what we did is we sought out experts and we are looking to bring them in and support us. Additionally, we're always looking to see how we can improve our multi-tiered system supports for students. And this is a way to do that, to continue to get better and better in those areas as our world and our students' world is changing very quickly. So that's in summary what the JED Foundation should bring for us at Gilbert High School specifically.
I'm assuming they'll provide some kind of a capstone or a report initially, and then what we're going to work on. I would look forward to the no punches pulled report on that afterwards.
Yeah. Exactly.
But you've been doing it for a few years.
The JED Foundation will be, this would be new. This would be a store. Yep, this would be a new function for us to work with.
How did we, I see that the fee for the program is quite expensive, but then we qualified for a significant scholarship, which brought the fee down to a more reasonable amount. How did we qualify for that scholarship?
Oh, we applied for it. We just applied for it. Yeah, we applied for it and received it. We've been working with and talking with them the last few months and said to them, how can you help make this something that our school district of our size, which is different than a school district, say in an urban setting, they work all over the country, they have much bigger school districts. How can you make this something that would better, a fee that would better fit us? And then within the fee that they gave us, we applied for a scholarship, received it. Next.
For independent consulting, that's dirt cheap. I don't even like having the money conversation about this, but I'm glad that you went through and got the scholarship.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I prefer reasonable to be as opposed to cheap, but yeah.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Well,
They mean the same thing, you know.
I want to thank Mrs. Bassett for bringing this forward. I think it's really important work, and it's something that she and her team have been talking to Judd for a few months now and wanting to bring this forward, and I think we'll gain some great information. So I appreciate her leadership as she has brought this, and I think it'll be great for the school district and specifically the high school.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, good work. Next, we have consider / approve ticket price increases for, I'm assuming the RSC's Raccoon River Conference, high school and middle school events and high school plays and musicals. So, got that, or just,
Yes,
Yeah.
so, Ian is not able to be here tonight to talk about this because he's over at the JV football game, so he's over there wearing that hat. But, the Raccoon River Group has come together and said they needed an increase in, the fees, and then with that, you can also see on this is the, play and musical admission price as well. And so that's also there, so I don't know if you have any questions, but I'm supportive of this recommendation as listed.
is there, this is not like, we really don't have a choice, right? This is, the conference is telling us we have to do this.
Yeah, well, if we said no, I mean,
It's
how
not
does that
money
work?
for a middle school.
I mean,
Well, I mean, we could say no, but then, I know, I'm just saying that, you know, this is the recommendation of the conference, and if we want to be in line with the conference, then we would join them all, so.
I will say at the fall sports parent meeting, Ian brought this up, that the ticket prices would be increasing, that the Raccoon River Conference was overall increasing prices, so our goal was to increase the price of the individual tickets, but Gilbert as a district was not increasing the price of the activity passes. So if you bought like a season activity pass or a punch card or a year-long activity pass, that price was staying the same. But the individual ticket prices would be increasing. So the better bargain is to buy the pass.
That's right.
If you go to a lot of things.
Anything, Mrs. Bassett, you want to add to that, or we're good?
I'm glad Mindy brought that up. That was one thing I wanted to bring up that Gilbert chose to do, again, to not increase those passes. We want to keep encouraging families and especially our students to attend, and the passes help when Gilbert goes. The information in your packet discusses the executive committee, the Raccoon River Conference Executive Committee, and I get to be part of that. It's a combination of principals, superintendents, and ADs. And so we talked a lot about the increases that you see there in prices to host, to hire, and to supply. And the fact that these prices haven't been changed in years. So the conference made a joint agreement. So being part of a conference means joint agreement to change these prices.
The other thing is that Ian does a nice job of looking for business partnerships to help fund kids attending the event. And so I think this Friday night, do you recall that, Mrs. Bassett? Who's our sponsor?
Our sponsor this Friday night is, I know. Is it Wilson?
That's what I was saying. Is it Wilson Toyota?
Wilson Toyota.
That's what I thought.
Sponsoring our students.
Students, yes, that's right. So students can get in for free Friday night. And they did a really fun thing at the pep rally which involved basketball, but, so we look for business partnerships to help, offset some of those costs as well. And encourage our students to come to our events. So thank you to Wilson Toyota for this Friday night.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Next, and this will be on a roll call vote, consider / approve setting a public hearing on the conveyance of waterline easement to the city of Gilbert. For October 14th, 2024 at 6 P.M. Pretty cut and dry.
Any
We
meeting.
just have to have.
We have to have
We're
the,
required to
That's
have.
the public hearing, there has to be in the paper 10 to 20 days. And then, published once, and then, there'll be action on the October 14th meeting regarding after the public.
this one and the next one, we're voting on a calendar, not the actual.
Just voting on setting the
Yeah.
meeting.
They're giving me the authority to publish it in the paper. And then setting the date.
Okay, so then I make a motion to approve setting a public hearing date for the water line easement to the city of Gilbert. Or is it a roll call vote or is it-
Yes. It is a roll call vote.
I'll second.
And a second, and then roll call.
So we have a second.
Yeah, I
Andrew.
seconded.
We have Mindy and then Andrew second.
Yeah.
Josh,
Yes.
Nathan,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Mindy,
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
All right. Next one, same time, same place. Consider / approve setting a public hearing on the conveyance of stormwater easement to Gilbert Ltd LLC.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, that's second.
Mindy.
Okay, another roll call vote. Josh,
Yes.
Nathan,
Yes.
Melissa. Yes. Mindy
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
All right. Next, consider / approve the 8th grade Washington DC trip, June 10th through the 13th, 2025.
This is a wonderful annual trip, and thank you to Mr. Danielson and all of the middle school staff that goes along.
Looking for chaperones.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's very
There we
fun.
go. They walk a lot of miles, but I mean, it is cool. So, I fully support this program and the work that Mr. Danielson does, and it's so great for our kids, so.
See, this
Recommend approval.
PDF is revised. You had to make some revisions along the way.
Yeah, this won't actually be the final itinerary anyways, Minnie knows she went along, we get out there, you have to adjust on the fly, and got it. This is pretty typical of
Yeah, but all these things are super cool. It's a busy day. Those kids stay busy, but you try to wear them out. And that you hope that they sleep in the hotel at night. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Gail, financial reports.
I'm gonna take your attention to, there's not a lot of activity going on right now. In the revenues and expenditures, so I am going to take you, I did give you a little bit of the activity compared to previous year. But the secretary's report, which is page 7. So if you look at this, I wanted to show you that, or just talk about a little bit about what happens in the summer. And you can tell the revenues are real low. We will start our state aid. Our two main sources of revenue in the general fund are state aid and property taxes, and they will start in September. State aid payments will get a little bit of property taxes, but our main source of property taxes, about 50% of the property taxes will come in about October 15th. When they're due September 30th, we'll get them about October 15th. So the main sources of revenue will be starting in September and then going on more equally. The other thing that I wanted to show you a little bit is the $15 million, the GO loan proceeds will actually arrive tomorrow morning. And so what we plan on doing is reimbursing about 2.9 million of this local option sales tax, which you can see compared to last year, we're about $1.8 million less. But we've got a project going on. So this has been cash flowing, the state has been cash flowing this until we receive our revenues from the GL, which will be tomorrow. So, I anticipate this week will pay back the, save about 2.9 million. And then, I also wanted to talk about on your, in front of you tonight is an investment portfolio, for our proposal. This fit is, we used them the last time we had a bond project. ISJIT is, a company for Iowa schools, and it's, very comparable, very competitive rates. We're really restricted about how we can, invest. So we already have an account set up with them from our last capital project that we did. And it's linked to our current, bank account, so it's a real easy money flow in and out. So they work with us, and so I just want to show you that their potential investment, and I also included the email because it kind of talks about what they anticipate for the rates to do, coming up with the election. I anticipate another drop in the interest rates. So we're going to, as soon as, they're gonna provide me a rate tomorrow. And hopefully it's as good as we're gonna get, because I anticipate to slowly get, lower as it goes. So also with that in mind, when I talked to Travis, I also have been in communication with Travis on this because he does all the projections. And interest rates, and the interest earned on this money is also projected in our portfolio. So as our discussion, because of the interest rates, being, dropped, anticipation of being dropped, he's also gonna take a look at when we finally get some numbers in for the high school projects, and then we're gonna pull back a little bit, not much, but we are gonna pull back a little bit on the interest earnings. We feel, as we were talking about it, that the interest rates, are dropping a little bit more than we thought they were going to about 6 months ago, 9 months ago, when we started the process. But with that being said, it doesn't put us in any, issues with any revenue. Our projects have been coming in, estimates have been good. So just want to talk about a little bit about that. And, also, and tonight, I wanted to provide some information that came in on it's mainly just spend some time the Iowa School Financial Information Services, some good information for comparabilities with other districts. The first is a dashboard, but then it goes into, it talks about Gilbert's enrollment history, kind of tells a story about, for example, our enrollment over the last 20 years, our enrollment has increased 62.3%. And over the last 5, it's only been 3.8%. And it goes into open enrollment, property evaluations, property tax information, gives us comparabilities with other districts. And the new monies, unspent authorized budget and our authority, and our property tax rates compared to other districts. And it does, one thing referring back to the dashboard, we talked about solvency ratio, and this does a really good job of showing you where that solvency ratio has been as low as back in 2001, it was 3.4. And then we were at 14%, about 22 years later. So, and as our conversations have been, and we've been talking as a board, that solvency ratio, as our expenditures have increased, our solvency ratio is dipping as we're coming in, but we know we put the cash reserve in, and we're hoping to slow that down and bring that up a little bit, because we want to be in that 12 to 15% range. At least 10%, that would be the lowest, but a perfect spot would be 12 to 15%. Just thought it was some good information that I wanted to provide.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And Gail, the solvency ratio is one of the reasons that our credit was downgraded, correct? So if we can get that up, then maybe we can get the credit back up in the future.
Yeah, so I would, going forward, I as our financial goals, I will continue to bring the April 15th district budget. I will always bring to a draft with the maximum cash reserve. Going forward. And we'll talk about that, but as we do that, we'll need to think about that is very crucial to us with cash flow. Because that helps offset our special ed deficit. We are, this year's 1.5 million exceeded the cash flow, so it's just very important that we continue that to have some consistency, and we know that as we go forward, this probably will not be our only, I mean, there'll be lots of facility projects. So we'll need to continue that, and that is our side of, and our financial goals is part of the cash reserve. Which is all property tax, but we try to maintain a real level, and so it fits right into our property tax rate. Anyone?
Thank you. All right, next we have the consent agenda. Anything need to be pulled or discussed? Go ahead and we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, calendar, October 14th at 6, regular board meeting, October 28th at 5:30 is the work session. That's our training with IASB. November 11 at 6 is a regular board meeting. That'll be in the district office conference room. November 20 through 22nd is the annual convention. Try to get as many people as we can. And December 9th is the annual meeting. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.